Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table. We're always happy to have you here on Tuesday mornings. This is Earl Kitchings, your host, and we are glad to be with you on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM, WBISLP, Roku TV, GPAC, of course, YouTube and Facebook Live. So we are happy to be with you. We apologize for not being with you last week, and I apologize today. I'm having some slight medical issues, so I'm going to have to wear this mask at least through the show today. But hopefully it won't distract you too much from our topic of the day, because the topic is important from the standpoint of what's going on in America right now. And that basically, the one storyline that's going on is the Supreme Court and its ruling to overturn Roe versus Wade. So our topic today is bureaucracy, democracy, and hypocrisy. Bureaucracy, democracy, and hypocrisy. And it is unfortunate that we are at this point in the history of America, 2022, and the Supreme Court is taking these kinds of actions. It is just unfortunate, and we certainly have too much anguish going on in this country right now, and it's going to create such turmoil. And I guarantee you that when it's time to go to the ballot box in November of this year, this is going to be one of the issues that will decide our next round of legislators in Washington, in your home state, maybe even in your home city. So the question I have for you is this: do you know the definition of bureaucracy? Do you know that definition? Raise your hand if you do. Okay. For those of you who don't, let's talk about the definition of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a system of government, a system. And remember, some shows back, we did systemic and systematic. Systemic and systematic. A system of government in which most of the important decisions are made by state officials rather than by elected representatives. Important decisions are made by state officials rather than elected representatives. And we know that bureaucracy can gum up the works in a lot of things. And a lot of times we call bureaucracy what? Red tape. And red tape can be a real problem in some places. And we know that when we have red tape going on, things are slowed down, delayed, forgotten about, pushed off to the side, thrown in file 13, you name it, we have that problem going on. Bureaucracy, a system of government in which most of the important decisions are made by state officials. Then there's democracy. Now, the opposite of democracy is communism. And there are some communist countries in the world. And communist countries tend to control your entire life. What you do, what you say, almost what you think, where you can live, what you can eat, they control it. However, for those people who live in those type of countries and have lived there and are used to it, all well and good. But those countries that profess to be democracies, a democracy is a system of government by which the whole population are all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. But a democracy is the whole population. It's not just my side or your side, it's everybody. Everybody. And when you say everybody, that's what it means. Everybody. Nobody's left out. Unfortunately, over the last 5 to 6 years, that level playing field has been tilted slightly where some people believe that it's just their way or no way. The threat to democracy in this country is real. And that threat, if not thwarted, will become something none of us have ever seen in the history of this country. 400 plus years of this country, the founding fathers or the men who organized and put the documents together to make us have a democracy, we're looking at that threat being so real that if this country goes to an autocracy, we're not that much further away from being a communist state, possibly. So we have to be aware of what's going on, understand what people are saying and what people are doing, how people are trying to strong arm the way things are done in certain places throughout this country, how people want to only see it from a slanted view. And as long as we do it from that perspective, there's going to be a fight. Now, it's been over 150 years since the Civil War. We are approaching, not saying we're going to have one, but we are on the fringe, potentially of having some sort, some type, something that might look like a civil war, because folks are lining up one side against the other. And all this has to do with people thinking, the ones who think this way, that they're going to lose something. Something is being taken away from them. So when we talk about a democracy, and we talk about for the people, by the people, of the people, how you have the rights, you have rights in this country that other countries don't have. They don't have those rights. And when your rights are taken away from you, what will you have left? Someone telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. That's not a democracy. And in some countries, the other D word is called dictatorship. Dictatorship, communism kind of go hand in hand. If America loses its democracy, what will be said? How will people respond and how will people act? What will people do? Are they going to just let it go? Or is there going to be pushback? Strong pushback. Pushback to the brink of a fight. And that's sort of where we're heading. That the minority who feel that things are being taken away from them, that their way of life is being destroyed, they want to really push hard, almost to the brink of fighting. Well, and you saw how folks can just totally lose control of themselves a year ago, January 6th. Something that we would have never believed would have happened. We've seen a lot of things happen in this country, but for people to storm the Capitol, the bastion of democracy in this country, good, bad, and different, we may not like everything that comes out of Washington from the lawmakers, but we have gotten along with that. And that's why democracy is a beautiful thing, because you can speak your piece, say what you need to say, agree to disagree, agree to disagree. But when it's just one side calling all the shots, you don't have a say-so, you don't have a right, there's going to be some pushback. And for people who've had to fight decades and centuries, who've had to fight for their rightful place, for their legal rights in a country that says every man, woman, child in this country has a right, it's not going to be something that those people are going to let go of easily. And the people who believe in this are not going to let it go easily. So you have a bureaucracy where the important decisions are made. You have a democracy that includes the entire population. Now we get to the third word and its definition. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. And the definition of hypocrisy is the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. A pretense. You say one thing, but your actions show something else. You do one thing, but then your actions really are opposite that. People who become hypocrites, hypocritical, hypocrisy. You say and believe one thing, but your actions don't show it. And that's where we are when I bring up this issue about the Supreme Court. And SCOTUS, the acronym for Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, seems to be on that fence of teetering between democracy and hypocrisy. They're the bureaucracy. They make important decisions. The Supreme Court makes important decisions for democracy. But they're supposed to make decisions specifically for justice and fairness based on truth. Justice and fairness based on truth in a democracy. That's what we're looking for. But now, what they say in one respect is different than what they say and do in another. After 50 years of being on the law books, the case of Roe versus Wade, to allow a woman to have the right to have an abortion, more specifically, the right to do what she would or will with her own body. The right that if she has been raped or has had incest perpetrated on her, she has the right. She has the right as to whether or not she wants to bring that child to term. The Supreme Court of the United States of America has overturned that right and says it can't happen. We're going to send it and let the states, make the decisions. And interestingly enough, the state that has seen the most cases of rapes is Texas. 13,509 last year. Don't know what it'll be this year, but in 2021, rape, incest. And for those of you who may not know what incest is, that's when a family member impregnates another family member or has sex with another family member. And there have been cases where minors have become the victims of rape and incest by family members. And now, depending on what state you live in, you're telling this child that they must bring that child to term. They must give birth to that child. And the governor of Texas made this comment, and I quote, "He is going to eliminate rape in the state of Texas." That's what he's going to do. He's going to just eliminate it. You're number one in this crime. And he calls it a crime. You're number one, but you're just going to eliminate it. Do totally away with it. It won't be happening in Texas no more, because I'm going to get rid of it. Well, Mr. Governor, let's see how well that works. You've put yourself on the line now. Let's see how well it works. You're going to eliminate rape in the state of Texas. Okay. Because now the Supreme Court has overturned Roe versus Wade. And the fact that that decision was made, the right to life. See, this is where the hypocrisy comes, the right to life. You want those unborn children to have the right to life if their mother chooses not to want to bring them to term, but you want them to have that right. You're going to force, basically, a minor. And there have been cases where there have been 12, 13-year-old girls who've been impregnated, and now you're saying you will have that child. 10 years after that happens, that child will be 10, she will be 23. She did not get a chance to live her life. She did not get a chance to grow up as a child. She had to grow up as a parent. You're going to take that away from these minors. Yes, I do understand the preciousness of life. But don't talk about life in that perspective, then turn around and grant folks the opportunity to take away life in a more violent way. You overturn Roe versus Wade, but you rule against the strengthening of gun laws and gun safety in this country. The most violent way to take a life is by shooting someone with a high-powered weapon, a weapon of destruction, a weapon that is used in war, a weapon that can shoot multiple rounds in seconds. you won't stand up and force those individuals who choose to purchase a weapon for the intent. It might not always be what they want to do, but the intent for defending themselves or for perpetrating a crime of mass murder, i.e. Buffalo, i.e. Uvalde, i.e. Las Vegas, i.e. Sandy Hook. The list goes on and on and on. You won't make that a strong case and make that something difficult for people to do, gun safety and gun laws, but you will overturn a woman's right to do what she will with her body, especially minors who did not ask for this crime. They did not ask to have this perpetrated on them, but you want them to bear the results. But you won't stand up and fight those individuals who want to buy weapons of destruction, weapons that maim, mutilate, and murder innocent people. An 18-year-old can purchase a weapon of destruction. Excuse me. An 18-year-old can purchase a weapon of destruction. Yet, they cannot purchase cigarettes or alcohol because they are underage. You can buy a weapon that can kill 21 people in a matter of minutes, but you can't go after you do that crime and purchase a pack of cigarettes or a beer. But it's okay for that to be the case. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, Supreme Court. Hypocrisy. America, who sees rights to life from an abortion standpoint, okay. But what about the right to life for those children in Uvalde, Texas? Did they not have a right to life? Did those adults in Buffalo not have a right to life? Those children in Sandy Hook, did they not have a right to life? How do we stand with such hypocrisy from the entity that is supposed to provide justice, fairness based on truth? Justice, fairness based on truth. SCOTUS, we're going to have some long days ahead. It's going to be some very long days ahead. And I hope that you can sleep well at night during these next few days, months, weeks, years. I hope you sleep well at night when the children of America look upon you and ask you why. Don't I have a right to life? Don't I have a right over the say-so of what happens with my body? Hypocrisy in a democracy filled with bureaucracy. That's what we're talking about today. This is the Kitchings Table on Awesome Radio, WBISLP 106.9 FM. We're always glad to have you with us every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock to discuss, talk about, share topics of interest that we feel are important to us, that we like to share with you. I'm Earl Kitchings, and I apologize again for my mask today, but I'm dealing with a slight medical issue, so I wanted to keep that in control and in check. So that was segment one of our show today for bureaucracy, democracy, and hypocrisy. So now we go to our segment as we approach the halfway point of our show today, called the pantry. And it's kind of a sidebar, topic that we talk about that's related to the overall topic. So our pantry section today talks about licenses. Licenses. What do you need a license to do in America? I'm sure many of you can answer that. The first thing probably that comes to mind that you need a license for in America is to what? That's right. Drive a car or drive a vehicle. You got to have a license. But in order to get that license, you must take a written test. Then you must take a over-the-road test with a driver instructor or a driver safety officer, a highway safety officer. And then, and only then, after that written test and that over-the-road test have been completed and you passed, will you receive a driver's license. You must do those two things to operate a vehicle, a piece of equipment, machinery that is a great thing to have for moving people and objects about, but at the same time, it can be a weapon of destruction. And it has been a weapon of destruction in many automobile and traffic accidents. However, what else do you need a license to do? Fishing? Yep. What about styling and cutting hair? Need a license for that. What about practicing law? You need a license for that. What about doing medical procedures? You need a license for that. Here are some examples of what you need a license for in America. Teachers, got to have a license. And these licenses require you pass a test. Land surveyors, doctors, lawyers, cosmetologists, nurses, building contractors, counselors, therapists, electricians, insurance agents, funeral service directors, pesticide handlers, home inspectors, pipe fitters. The list goes on and on and on. And to get a license, as I stated, you must demonstrate that you meet standards for that career or whatever you're trying to, or profession you're trying to go into. It includes specific training, logging a designated amount of work experience, and taking a licensure exam. Most exams assess knowledge of work processes, codes, policies, standard practices, and more. You need a license to do all these things. But this country does not require you need having to have a license to operate a firearm. You don't need a license to operate a firearm, a weapon of destruction. Like a vehicle, the end game is the same. If you're in an accident with that car or truck, whatever, the end game could be the death of someone. When you have a weapon of destruction, an automatic weapon, a weapon that is supposed to be single shot that you turn into an automatic weapon, the end game is something's going to die if you aim it, point it, shoot it at people. Even if you shoot it at animals. That's the end game. Here's some more information about licenses. Licenses are granted by a government agency as permission to do something or use something. Now we go back to a bureaucracy, the term, and it's a system of government. Licenses are granted by a government agency. Some of the agencies, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Fish and Wildlife, the county clerk, if you want to get married, you got to have a marriage license. If you get married, you got to have a marriage license. No license for owning a weapon of destruction. No classes that you have to take. No exams you have to pass. Fork over the money, give me my gun. It's just that simple. Yeah, background checks. That's a background check. They don't do a background check for you to drive a car. You got to get a license. They don't do a background check for you to become a doctor, to operate on somebody. You got to get a license. They don't give you a background check to build a house or build a building. You got to get a license. No license needed for a weapon, especially one of mass destruction. Now, the other thing that correlates with a license is a permit. A permit. And permits are a particular type of license that regulates public safety. Permits are typically granted by a government agency following an inspection. For instance, a fire department, they may grant you a permit to open up a space for customers. The health department may give you a permit to serve food, but you still have to have that permit in order to open up a building for the public usage or to serve food for public consumption. You got to have a permit and a license to serve food. Permit and a license. You got to have both. No license, no permit needed to buy an AR-15. Go to a gun show, go to a gun shop, have the money, fork over the money, pay the amount, you get your weapon. At least it's that simple in many states. At least it was that simple, or it appears to be that simple for the 18-year-old in Texas who not only bought one AR-15, but two, and committed crimes of destruction. Where is the bureaucracy in slowing that process down? None. Just a lot of hypocrisy. Overturn Roe v. Wade, rule against strengthening gun laws so people can take others' lives with a weapon. Interestingly enough, you may wonder, why does this country operate from a hypocrisy, a hypocritical stand, and when it comes to guns? We claim we're going to do something about it after mass shootings, but then nothing. We need to get on the gun lobbyists, or we need to get on the gun manufacturers, and then nothing. And as a sidebar to that particular situation here in America, I think one of the things that plays a direct, indirect role in that is the fact that in America, we have a lot of movies and TV shows that are made with a lot of violence, a lot of weaponry used, a lot of people getting shot because there are so many movies and TV shows. Think about that. What would have happened if there weren't as many movies or TV shows where violence using weapons are used? You know, it's a rush, I guess, to see that happen until that rush turns into real life. And then there's this parallel of dejection, frustration, sorrow, and sadness. Some of the things that people see in movies or TVs, they bring to real life situations. No other country in the world has the amount of weaponry sold to citizens like America. We have a fetish with firearms, but the Supreme Court ruled against bringing that part of our country in line with stronger policies and procedures. You got to have a license to drive a car, but no license to shoot a gun or own a weapon. How does that work? You got to have a license to go catch a fish. I got to have a license to go catch a fish. If I don't have that license, I'm going to get a ticket. If I catch more than the allotted amount of fish I'm supposed to catch with my license, I'm going to get a ticket. There's no license required to own and operate an AR-15. But I got to have a license to catch a fish. Such hypocrisy in a democracy filled with bureaucracy. So in our pantry segment today, those were the licenses, you know, what you need a license for, all the professions and careers, the difference between a license and a permit, but yet a license and a permit are issued by the government. By the government. Same government that does not actively want to engage in minimizing people purchasing weapons, multiple weapons, many weapons of people destruction. You're listening to the Kitchings Table, heard every Tuesday morning here on WBIS FM, LP, 106.9, Roku, GPAC, Facebook Live, and, of course, YouTube. So our final segment of our show today, we asked the question, what is the value? What is the value of human life? What is the value of human life? It has become, and this is probably something that's been going on for centuries, thousands of years. The invaluing of human life. Human trafficking years ago, slave labor, devaluing a person's life, people taking others' lives because of something that offended them, something that was said to them that they didn't like. It's about me, my rights, what I want, what I like. I was recently speaking to a friend of mine who lives in Atlanta, said that a lady lost her life in a sandwich shop because she put too much mayonnaise on a customer's sandwich. The customer was not happy, and rather than ask her to remake the sandwich, he shot her. These senseless things people do. So you see, you have the invaluing of a life with the fact that this person has a weapon. Could have been a person that had just gotten out of jail or is on probation and shouldn't have a weapon. And because you didn't fix my sandwich the way I wanted it, I'm going to take you out. Why do we devalue human life so easily? Why do we devalue the worth of another human being so easily? Why is it so easy to cast off children who've been raped or had incest committed on them and not care enough about them to punish the perpetrators instead of to punish them? Why? You see, lies have become truth, and those lies now create even more of a convoluted society where the value of someone's life is not that important. The trend, this systemic problem, is not going away. I won't even say anytime soon because that would be an untruth. This systemic problem, the devaluing of human life in America, in Ukraine, in South America, in China, in wherever it is happening, senseless actions taken by one human being against another. It is unfortunate that in the year 2022, senseless things like this continue. And will continue because the only animals on the planet who have the power to come together are the most violent and vicious animals on the planet. For all the good things that mankind can do for mankind, mankind can do just as much devious and destructive things against mankind. Why do we dislike each other so much? Personalities, I. Wanting things one way, I. Mine, not yours, I. You know, they say there's no I in team. And when you spell the word, there is no I in team. Unfortunately, society, there is an I. And for all the people who feel that they must impart their thoughts, ways, actions against someone else, it is a sad commentary. Too much mayonnaise on a sandwich, stepping on my sneakers, looking at me the wrong way. All kinds of unbelievable reasons why people perpetrate violent acts against other people, when you could simply ask, could you remake my sandwich? You could just apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your sneakers. When there are easier and better ways to resolve problems, we tend to want to solve problems. Not all of us, but because of the way we solve these problems with such violence, it gets the headlines. Solving a problem of violently doesn't do any good for anybody. The after effect is that it hurts far more than we can think about. A family is now torn apart. An individual has now lost their loved one. A child has now lost their parent. A parent has now lost their child. Any way you cut it, there's pain. It's okay to grant people the right to buy weapons of destruction, but you won't give people the rights to do with their body what they choose. Our topic today has been bureaucracy, democracy, and hypocrisy. Three words, three different meanings, three different effects, and they all overlap in some way or another in our society. How do we talk about our beliefs from a spiritual perspective when our societal perspectives are just totally hypocritical? You know what they say about Sundays, right? The most segregated day of the week. What an irony. I pray, I hope that the temperament of a violent country can be quelled so that more children can see their next birthdays, so more parents don't bury their children, so more children are not left to the caretaking of others that are not their parents, who are orphaned. No matter how you cut it, it does not help anyone. So if we could move along the bureaucracy, expedite it a little bit more quickly, if we could embrace the democracy of everyone having a right And if we could stop being so hypocritical in our thoughts, thinking, and actions. And oh, by the way, if the LOVE could be more real than not, oh, what a great world we would live in. But until that happens, we have to make the best of a bureaucratic, democratic, and hippocratic country. I hope that today's message resonates with you. I hope that you can find a way to love someone more today than you did yesterday. Let's work to better society for all, not just some. Let's give our children the chances that we have or we've had to live this long in life and see their children and their children's children. We all have a place and we all have a talent and skill that we can dwell on. Let's use those for the good of all. Hey, I'm Earl Kitchings. This has been the Kitchings Table here on Awesome Radio, WBISLP 106.9 FM. Catch me every Tuesday on YouTube or Facebook Live, GPAC23 or Roku, for the Kitchings Table, where we bring you what we feel are important thoughts and issues that you need to know about. Until the next time, we're going to say so long.